greatest co-host in the world, What's 2K99? Get ready to rumble!
The tag team champions of the world.
My brotherly creeper
That is the best intro I have ever received.
the world. The Buffalo Jets man.
Yo.
George Fant is a barely above replacement level, pretty good left tackle.
How can you say
Compare
that when
that
he
to
was
an-
top 3 in sack percentage last year for left tackles?
And I think when in doubt, until you have better reason, go with the optimistic view. And our defensive line is going to be giving a lot of people some trouble.
But yeah, it's got to be. I'm with you. I don't like the Nathan's fries when they're like floppy. It's got to be like done really well. You know, it's very hard to teach 6'3" and 4'3" speed. That's very rare. The talent's there. He's just got to put it together mentally.
Right.
To get
You're a
onto
cheater.
your, I'm a cheater. All right, here we go. We got Tigo and my co-host Watsuke99, and what a day it has been. After speculation and just anticipation, it got heated up. The news broke too early. Apparently, it leaked. People pulled back on it, and then Jake Asman seemed to know, and then finally it became official, and here we are. And I know what you guys all heard my reaction. I thought we were talking about Lamar Jackson today, but we're not going to be talking much about that in comparison to the big news. For those of you who weren't here before with the channel, this is it. Mike LaFleur is gone, and the New York Jets are shopping for a new offensive coordinator. And we'll start with my co-host Adam Watsuke99 for a reaction.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
All right. So here's my first thought. I did a brief video myself after the news broke. I managed to sneak one in at work. Thankfully, my boss was out of the office. And the biggest question that I have right now for the Mike LaFleur critics, and in my mind, you could have made a good argument for him to stay, a good argument for him to go. Either way, I could see it. But this is my biggest question. This is accomplishing what exactly? And is this making Zach Wilson or whoever a better quarterback now? Is Zach Wilson now better suited to be a quality NFL quarterback today than he was yesterday? I don't feel like I can definitively say that the answer to that question is yes. To me, Rob Calabrese was the one who had to go, and he very well still may go. But it wasn't Michael LaFleur's job to develop Zach Wilson's footwork, to work on his arm angle. He has to take care of the whole offense. He can't take all of his time to develop one player. To me, that's more on Calabrese. And LaFleur, you could talk about him not being creative enough at times, and at times that was the case. But he managed to get players open. The fact is, there are a lot of times if you watch the All-22, you had receivers running wide open, but we had 4 quarterbacks who so often could not get the ball to those receivers. And there is no offensive coordinator when you lose your best weapon, when you have 4 quarterbacks who are inaccurate and most of them can't even run to begin with, when most of them can't run, and you have an offensive line that is down to their 5th and 6th tackles respectively, it's pretty hard to come up with an offensive plan that's going to make that work. I wish LaFleur could have had his chance with a quality quarterback. We're not going to get that chance. I don't think it's and we'll talk more about this, but for right now, I'm not going to say that I'm happy about it. I'm not going to say I'm upset about it, but I got to see who this replacement's going to be.
Well said. That's my biggest thing with it is I was on the fence of if he gets fired, he gets fired. If he stays, he stays. But there has to be a clear and concise path forward. And I'm having a hard time seeing that with Mike LaFleur gone now. Because what offensive coordinator or offensive-minded coach is going to come to the New York Jets right now who don't have a quarterback and are going to have to bring in a new quarterback, have 4 huge question marks on the offensive line, and is going to attach themselves to a Robert Saleh wagon. And again, I love Robert Saleh as our head coach, but Woody Johnson is not a very patient man. And let's, God forbid, I'm going to knock on all of the wood that let's say this team doesn't make the playoffs next year, because we are in an incredibly difficult division. Miami's only going to get better in year 2 under McDaniel, right? The Bills are still the Bills. They're not going anywhere. And so how do we move forward at the offensive coordinator position? And that's the real thing, because Frank Reich, which I think is the answer that everybody has, is just go through the bag at Frank Reich. And yeah, if that's the answer, and like if he's here, fantastic. Like that's who I want to be our offensive coordinator. He's getting looks as a head coach, right? Like we're relying on so many things going wrong with other like interviews and stuff for Frank Reich. That's my biggest concern, which is just like, I just don't know. I don't know what the plan forward is and who's going to come in. That's the real question. So you're muted.
Jeremy, you're muted. Jeremy.
I'll tell you who's going to come in. You know who's going to come in? The Buffalo Jet fans going to come in.
Well, we already know he's working on that play call with the chalkboard right over his right shoulder, so we know he's active at work.
Hey, and it's empty backfield too, so Mike LaFleur would love it.
Perfect. Especially on third down.
Which one's Bryce Hall, though?
Well, he's on
not Bryce.
Yeah, about to say.
I was gonna say,
guys, it's been. I'm still sick.
Only
Which
week
one's
18.
Brees on
Only
there?
week
Did
18 for Bryce. Yeah.
What's up, boys?
Oh, we're doing okay. We don't know right now if this is a great day or a terrible day.
Yeah, I don't think it's either. I my gut, if I could sum it up in a sentence or two, look, the Jets took a colossal bust with the number 2 overall pick, and somebody had to be the guy to be a fall guy. Yeah, that's what I believe. Now, that doesn't mean that Mike LaFleur is a good OC. Like, Zach was horrible, offensive line his job was hard. If I was Mike LaFleur's agent, I'd have a hard time selling you on his accomplishments that he's a good OC. I thought last year he did some creative things. I thought the offense overperformed at times. It's weird. At the end of last year, I felt as good about Mike LaFleur as I did about any of the 3 biggest coaches, including Saleh and Ulbrich. The one thing that it gives me some cause for reservation on, wanting to champion or celebrate that he's gone, is that I once did literally want Jeff Ulbrich fired, like at the beginning of this year. And I thought that, and people told me, no, he just doesn't have the talent. And I said, no, look, this scheme isn't working. The principles aren't working. And then all of a sudden the talent comes in and everything falls into place. So could that have been the case with Mike LaFleur? And you say, oh, well, Mike LaFleur had 2 years and Jeff Ulbrich only had 1 year. But dude, no, Mike LaFleur has never had talent. He's never had a quarterback that we know can hit a pass. So I think that's what it really was. I don't think the Jets know if Mike LaFleur is a good offensive coordinator. They just needed a fall guy for Zach Wilson being a bust, and here we are.
And that's the way it goes. And I want to respond to something that I saw in the chat about his red zone offense not working, about it being a failure. Guys, who was talking about the Jets' red zone offense being bad before the Minnesota game happened? The answer is not a single soul. Nobody was. The Jets were a top 10 red zone offense. And when I say that, I'm talking about touchdown percentage after the first New England game. By then, you'd lost Brees, you'd lost AVT, and we just couldn't pivot. We couldn't adjust to it. I'm going to give you a number here on the running game here that just shows how much this offense was hurt. When Brees Hall and Elijah Vera Tucker were on the field, the Jets called 90 run plays. They ran for 503 yards. That's 5.6 yards per attempt. That would be the best in the NFL for the whole season. On all other run plays, 255 attempts, a lot more, 983 yards, 3.85 yards per attempt. That's 30th. Losing those two players killed them. They went from 1 to 30 in the first to the second half of the season when you look at Brees and AVT. So I don't know what offensive coordinator was going to be able to overcome that type of adversity. And, he couldn't, and he had to pay, he paid the price for it. It is what it is.
That's my thing is like, name an offensive coordinator that would, like, who loses and has to play with a battered offensive line, loses a top 10 running back in the NFL, and then doesn't have anywhere near the level of talent to produce anything in the run game because the offensive line can't create any push. Like, this isn't me defending Mike LaFleur and his job. It's just a matter of, like, now I think we've put ourselves in a really, really difficult situation because, again, who's gonna want to come to the New York Jets as an offensive coordinator? Like, if the idea is to fire Mike LaFleur to bring in a veteran offensive mind, who is that guy that's out there on the market that's going to do that and wants to come to the Jets and isn't getting head coaching looks? You know what I mean? Because I could only come up with one name, and it's not a good name. Or it's not that it's not a good name. I wouldn't be mad if he came to the Jets, but I also wouldn't be happy if he came to the Jets, and that was Cliff Kingsbury. It's a veteran offensive mind who just got fired as a head coach, probably isn't going to be looked at for head coaching jobs. This might be a spot where he can come land. But outside of that,
coach college than do that.
He's never been in the NFL up until the Arizona game. What about Kubiak?
The reports are already come out that he's not coming out of retirement.
Yeah.
I want
Kubiak. If Aaron Wilson's reporting it, then I guess I have to go with it now.
Like, is that like Aaron Butler?
Oh, yeah.
No, Aaron Wilson actually has different reports. That's the difference.
Like, I wanted Gary to, like, come out of retirement and come to the Jets and be like, that would have been such a cool thing, right? But, like, is that really the answer?
I liked him better as a senior advisor to Mike LaFleur than actually. I don't know. To me, I always have that trepidation of pulling. I feel like the NFL, if you're out of it for a couple years, man, it seems to just. I know John Gruden, it was a much longer time. That's a different story. But we pulled Chan Gailey out, and I don't know. To me, I think we might end up hiring like another Mike LaFleur, like some passing coordinator from some other team was like giving him his first shot. I just think it's like a replacement level move. I don't think that the Jets are going to get significantly better or worse however they replace Mike LaFleur. I do think some of the criticisms, I think down the stretch, the red zone stuff, I think you're right, Adam. It was kind of it became a huge thing against Minnesota. Look, if Braxton Berrios catches that pass, we're probably not talking about it. But down the stretch, could any offensive coordinator turned Zach Wilson behind this offensive line into a competent offense? No, I don't think so. I don't think Andy Reid could have done it, to be honest. However, could a competent offensive coordinator have sniffed the end zone in the last 3 games? The Jets didn't even have a pass that was targeted in the end zone their last 9 quarters. A pass didn't go into the end zone for 9 quarters. That's crazy. I'm watching Josh Dobbs score touchdowns. I'm watching Sam Howell score touchdowns. I'm watching Josh Dobbs, Jarrett Stidham score touchdowns. And it's like and that's a loaded roster, but it's just like, man, in 2023 to just not. And also, we have the best rushing attack we had since Breece Hall went down was Bam Knight very briefly against Chicago and their beleaguered defense, and then Chris Streveler for like a half against Jacksonville. And the fact that I don't know if it's a solid decision or a LaFleur decision, but you have the worst 3rd down and 3 or less conversion rate in the NFL by far. And you never bring him out there. I know Chris Streveler's not a quarterback, but can he take a handoff and get 3 yards? The creativity went away. When's the last time we saw one of those flea flickers or like the hook and ladders, the stuff that kind of made him a name for himself last year? I just think as the season went on, he got tight. You have Garrett Wilson saying that the defense was on. I really think that the last 3 weeks was really left a sour taste in my mouth for Mike LaFleur. Is that enough to get a guy fired? I don't know, but that was pretty tough. And I think the last month, he does have to wear some of that, in my opinion.
I think one of the reasons why he wasn't as creative, why you didn't see a lot of play action flea flicker, is because you couldn't trust that offensive line to block for more than 1.5 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, Dwayne Brown was as bad Dwayne Brown was like Morgan Moses from last year. He could pass block a little bit, but he couldn't run block to save his life. I think it was actually the opposite. But Morgan Moses was only good at one side of blocking. Dwayne Brown was basically the same thing. He couldn't run block. We know what a disappointment Laken Tomlinson was. Connor McGovern, take it or leave it. And Nate Herbig, that elbow must have been killing him because
he wasn't the same.
His performance just went down and down. And George Fant was never healthy. And even when he is healthy, Tigo, I know you like this, he's never a good run blocking tackle anyway. So what can you really expect to do in that kind of a spot? It's like, get the ball out, get rid of it. And yeah, other defenses watched, I guess the Patriots figured out how they played against us. They just adopted it. Look at Detroit, look at Jacksonville, look at Seattle. We could never overcome that.
Yeah. It's hard to overcome like the a revolving door at offensive line. Like, I don't care who it is, to say that you're going to be a good offensive coordinator or offensive play caller when you've got in 2 years back to back, right? By far and away the worst quarterback play of any NFL team. And then you add on top of that a revolving door at the offensive line. It's just, again, he's gone. And we move forward from him. There's no looking back at this point. It's just about, I'm just curious about what the plan moving forward is, because some of the names that I've been seeing, while are okay, there's no one that screams like this guy is the solution. You know what I mean? You keep hearing about that QB coach in Miami. You keep hearing about like the passing game coordinator, the running game coordinator, and the QB coach all out of Philadelphia. And it's just like, if we went with any of these guys, it's a lateral move. At that point, just keep the system the same. Why did Adam said this earlier on in the stream? Like, at that point, just fire the QB coach. Right? Like, it's his
I think
job.
He's gone too. I think Benton and Calabrese are toast too. Yeah.
Yeah. But like that should have been the scapegoat, is Calabrese. Calabrese should have been the guy that got scapegoated and said it was his job to develop Zach Wilson. Mike LaFleur can't sit here and develop all of invest all of his time in the quarterback. You know, it's 11 guys on the field. There's these massive rooms. He has to spend time with if that was the messaging, I think you would have convinced enough Jets fans, or you could even have convinced Woody that it was just like, look, he's an offensive coordinator. It's 22 players on our roster are dedicated to the offensive side of the ball, and he's going to focus on one guy. No, like, that's why we have these positional coaches. Calabrese failed his job. Look, he's gone. I just want to know what the answer is, because I can't seem to find a good one not named Frank Reich.
Billy, who's the quarterback? That's what these offensive coordinators want. They want a quarterback. And until we have that in place, you almost got to wonder. I've been hearing rumors about Greg Olson. And when I heard about Greg Olson, I'm like, why are we hiring the former tight end out of the Fox booth? You know, I guess before Brady replaced it. And I'm like, oh, there's another Greg Olson out there. And it's actually interesting. I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a second. Derek Carr, he's got to be like, a decision has to be made on him. 3 days after the Super Bowl, I believe? Mm-hmm. If that's the case, maybe – it sounds almost a little backwards, but maybe if Carr comes, then Olsen is the natural hire. Maybe that's something that would make sense.
What if I told you guys that there was an offensive coordinator who once had a backup near 40-year-old quarterback complete 67% of their passes and throw a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, who took an undrafted free agent wide receiver, turned him into a near 1,000-yard wide receiver. That wide receiver left and never did anything. He took a highly drafted and troubled tight end, and under his tutelage had 50 catches, and that tight end never had more than 20 in another season the rest of their days.
Does he want to come back to the Jets, though?
Come on, man. No, look, he's not going to, but I die on the hill forever for John Morton, man. That dude made, I'll say that he made Mike's Hard Lemonade out of lemons. Okay. It wasn't great. Mike's Hard Lemonade isn't great, but man, you could choke it down. You could choke it down with what he had to work with. But let me ask you guys this: since Tigo and Adam, you're both sort of on and Jeremy, once he breaks his silence over there, you're both on the defend LaFleur thing. I think that's fair. It does feel like he's being scapegoated, but I still think it's possible that he's being scapegoated and he's maybe not good at his job. That's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
where I'm at. But if
Both things
you
can be true.
Both things can be true. Absolutely.
right, that's kind of
No,
where
he could have been better. There's no doubt about that this year. Yeah, he definitely could have been better. Oh, I do wonder about one other thing. When all the reports that we see coming out are that LaFleur has these other opportunities that he wants to explore. Other teams, organizations have been contacting him. I am fascinated to find out what these alleged opportunities are. I'll tell you this right now: if it's another offensive coordinator job in the NFL, that's sad because why would that? To me, if you're doing that, you're getting a promotion. Are there actual teams in the NFL calling about Mike LaFleur as a head coach, or is the relationship just so not going to work between LaFleur and Wilson, or LaFleur and whoever else on the offense, that they realized they had to make a break? The only conclusion I could come to is that both parties felt that it just wasn't going to work going forward. And my feeling, I made a video on this about a month ago. I said two things cannot be true next season. Either Mike LaFleur cannot be the offensive coordinator, or Zach Wilson cannot be the starting quarterback. I felt like the two were just not going to mesh no matter what. LaFleur wants to run one offense, Zach wants to play another offense. And now one of those factors is out of the picture. So in that respect, I feel a little bit better because maybe it means the organization is moving in a direction that it needs to move in, where everybody's on the same page. And maybe Mike LaFleur is just the wrong offensive coordinator for Zach Wilson. Not that I'm blaming LaFleur for Zach Wilson's struggles, but I think this type of offense is not suited to play to Zach's strengths. Don't laugh, chat. The guy does have some talent. Okay, he could still throw the ball, he could still run, and I just don't think he was coached the way he needed to be.
I think there are opportunities out there for Mike LaFleur to be an offensive coordinator. I think that's a real thing because, like, if you sit here and think about it, there are 5 new head coaches that are going to come in, and so those are potentially 5 offensive coordinator jobs depending on what happens there, right? But like the other thing is there are teams that have head coaches who are defensive minded guys who have offensive coordinator spots open. Like, where I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he at least got a look? New England. New England doesn't have an offensive coordinator. The rumors came out that they were looking at Bill O'Brien, and that's fine if they want to bring back Bill O'Brien and if he wants to leave Alabama to come back to the NFL. Like, that's like a match made in heaven, right? But like the Titans need an offensive coordinator as well. That might be a place where he can go. There are places where you can go, and they might be lateral moves, but there are places there where he can go. And if you're selling on Mike LaFleur, like, you can just do all of the things that me and Adam did for a little bit. You just blame the offensive line. You blame Zach Wilson and your quarterback coach for being horrible. You say, look, the Joe Douglas, the regime before us had the audacity to win a game. If I had Trevor Lawrence, I would have been great. Like, there are so many coaches are always going to be able to blame somebody else because they're the ones that are being interviewed. And those people aren't going to go ask Joe Douglas what he thinks about Zach Wilson because he's not going to tell them the truth. He's going to defend Zach Wilson because that was his pick. And so I'm not saying that he is going to be an offensive coordinator next year, but if it came out and it said, oh, hey, Michael LaFleur got the job as the offensive coordinator for insert team here, I'm not going to say that I would be super surprised, to have or to see that, because I think that there is some talent there from an offensive coordinator position, and everyone's always trying to get into that, Shanahan tree and trying to get that wide zone run scheme implemented, and he does. But it still comes back to, what are we going to do? Because I keep hearing Darrell Bevell as the name, as the guy who's coming in, and it's just like, all right, like that seems like a lateral move.
Let's by the way, I just want to thank Thomas Cahill for the super chat. I appreciate you. With all the Jets issues, I'm sure he just needed the space. On offense, it requires somebody with experience and wisdom, not Mike LaFleur. Well, look, we were supposed to have somebody with experience. We had him. Tragedy struck, and we didn't replace him, and we never really replaced him. I'm not really sure why they made that decision. They didn't. And then it is a very valid question when people say, well, instead of when they hired Knapp and then when in replacing Knapp and needing a senior guy or experienced guy, why not just hire a seasoned, experienced offensive coordinator? That's the big question. And, but every offensive coordinator that's great, that's won Super Bowls, that's ever done anything, once was given a chance as new and inexperienced. So there's that to think about. Like you just gotta, and the question is we want experience, but a lot of people have a problem when that experience comes in the package of somebody who isn't working now or available as a coordinator because they failed. And so then you have that side of the coin. Yeah. Most people with experience that are available for the job have failed.
It's the same thing as quarterback. All the quarterbacks we want are quarterbacks that another team gave up on, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how desperate we are for experience right now in the middle of this unbelievable youth movement that we've had with all these first timers. And now we're just like, give us some leadership, give us some direction, just somewhere. We need it. Show us how to take us to the next level, how to take us over the top. I think that is what we are absolutely dying for right now. And we're dying for it on now an offensive coordinator and especially a quarterback.
I think once we get the quarterback, the offense would have taken off no matter what we did at offensive coordinator. I think like the how much I weight, like how much we needed an improvement at quarterback is so far ahead and above the play caller to me. It really is.
Jeff Ulbrich proved it. When you add talent, it makes the coordinator look a whole lot smarter. Just look at Jeff Ulbrich in the defense. Well, you can't tell me the same thing wouldn't have happened with LaFleur in the offense.
We'll never know, and that's why I'm holding that judgment, because I literally was convinced that I knew Jeff Ulbrich was bad at his job. So that's a serving of humble pie that I'm like keeping in the back of my mind with LaFleur. Could he a couple years down the road be a good offensive coordinator in the league? Sure, but and I watch a lot of Buffalo Bills games for reasons you may be able to guess, and I'm telling you, their offensive coordinator isn't good. He's not. But guess what? Josh Allen goes out there and makes magic happen, and nobody ever thinks twice about it. Some of the play calling they do is situationally they're awful in the red zone. They have all these turnovers. They don't stay committed to the run. It's bad. It's been a big step off since Brian Daboll, and spoiler alert, it's going to catch up to them. They're not winning the Super Bowl. You don't get to give the ball away like that and win the Super Bowl. But it doesn't matter, and that's what I think you would see with Mike LaFleur. If Mike LaFleur even if they started a healthy Mike White, who I don't think is a franchise quarterback or really that close to it, if they started a healthy Mike White for 17 games, they're a 10-win team and they're in the playoffs and no one's even talking about it. My goodness, if they don't allow 2 punt return touchdowns against Detroit, that's what the whole thing with fire anybody after this year, whether it be Saleh or anybody else. I'm like, as pissed off as I am at how it ended, and we did get outcoached a lot, like there's an injury here, an injury there, or a decent quarterback away from literally any kind of quarterback, and we would be in the playoffs, and it would be all off the table. I think you have to keep that in mind.
Oh, wait a second. Sorry, guys. Bringing in the... I don't know. I'm just going to bring him in. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom C. What's up, brother?
What's up, guys?
Wow. Going to need binoculars to see everybody here now.
I am not myself today with my intros. Sorry.
It's all good. I forgive you.
Tom, from a distance, it looks like you don't have a shirt on.
I know I don't have pants, but that's a whole nother story. I got a shirt. How are you guys? Hey, chat. What's happening? Good. Somber mood here. With many different things. Condolences, Jeremy, to the pup, to you and your wife, and to the Jets fans, man. It's a rough day. I know a lot. Some people are very happy. I don't know where I stand. I would have liked to see a little bit more continuity with the staff. I think it would have been much more stable environment, I think, would be that much more attractive. And I'm sure just coming in now, probably repeating a lot of stuff that you guys said, but it's going to be tough to bring a guy in my opinion, that knows, or is under the perception that there's a playoff mandate or else, you're coming into a coaching staff whose seat just got a little bit warmer. You know what I mean? So it's going to be tough, man. Sucks.
Absolutely.
Situation sucks, but it is what it is. You can't look past 3 consecutive games scoring 6 points. So, like I said,
really hard to defend.
Well, it's not the move that I would have made 100%. I was on team bring LaFleur back, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm surprised. It's not like it's not out of left field. If they fired Salah, I would be like, wow.
That would have been surprising.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, when Woody didn't talk to the press and said we'll be talking later or whatever, that to me was something's going to happen. Like, I didn't know what it was, but I said something's going to happen, because there's 2 alternatives when they come to him to talk to him after that last game. I'm sticking with my staff. It was, we're proud of the accomplishments that we made. We know we got a ways to go, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that's it. And he defends everybody and says, we'll be back. Or he says, I'm not talking. Let us, meet up for a few days and work things out. Then I'll talk to you. And to me, that meant, oh boy, nobody's job is safe.
That's like the owners saying, that's the owner's version of the coach saying after a bad game, I got to look at the tape.
Yep.
That means like hell's about to break loose. This sucks right now. Some's got to change. So that is exactly what Woody was saying.
Yeah. So let me, again, coming in late, maybe you've talked about it already, but let me ask you guys your opinion. Do you buy the story that other teams came knocking and LaFleur and Salah sat and discussed it and thought it was better that he go, or do you think that's just a soft landing for a nice guy?
I one guy definitely did. His name is Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
No, I think that was just that's just all perception. Make it nice. We
PR.
It's a love affair, a love fest. We gotta move on. They felt they had to move on, but that was
It wasn't
just,
me, it was you, or wasn't you, it was me.
Yeah.
that was for his sake. That was for his sake, because it's not an angry parting. It was probably a very sad for them. It was probably very sad.
Yeah. You started seeing the writing on the wall, like with Garrett's comments, and then, the media perception, Steve Young coming out and saying the other day, well, Zach doesn't do well with tough love. He needs somebody in there that can, is more of a brother than a father figure, blah, 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 blah.
That was a really weird statement, kind of, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sounds weird.
It's
Like,
kinda
he made Zach seem like he's
Zach
a little
like
pussy.
a Boy Scout. Yeah.
So who knows, man? It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. However, like, god damn, man, like another interesting offseason right from the get-go.
Yeah. This was I mean, not as I was saying it before. It's like there's some things that no matter how much we prepare for, when you get this news, it's always surprising when you actually hear it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I knew it could happen. I knew it might happen. Yeah. And they were even talking about it all day. Jake Osmond said it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And still, when it actually happens, it's like, wow, they did it. Holy cow, they really let him go. This is real now.
Yeah.
And it's always gonna be that reaction. Even like with quarterbacks, it could be rumored and leaked. Oh, they're talking to Derek Carr. They're gonna sign Derek Carr. They're gonna sign Derek Carr. And even if they build it up for 2 days, when it happens, like if it happened, you're like, holy cow, we got Derek Carr. You know what I mean? It's never, no matter what, it's going to be somewhat jolting when something actually happens that is big, that really impacts the franchise.
Well, I'm curious to see what the if there's more coming down the line from the offensive staff. everyone's got to think Calabrase's, situation probably is tenuous at best. I know they've talked about John Benton.
We know Miles Austin's going to be replaced. He's suspended.
Miles Austin. And
I love that Chad Johnson's
Chad
throwing his
Johnson,
name in the ring.
absolutely.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, I saw that. He said, I would love to coach Garrett and Corey and Elijah. He said, give me a call.
Notice how we didn't mention Denzel Mims. Just saying.
Or Braxton Berrios.
Jeff Smith. Irv Charles.
You'd have to assume that whatever offensive coordinator came in is gonna want to bring in their guys. You know what I mean? Like while you could adjust an offensive line coach and what he's teaching and different things like that, like with LaFleur gone, like Calabrese should just put in his resignation.
Oh yeah.
Like at this point, right? Like put it in your hands and just say I'm gone, and then you can go find another job somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, and then just try and do that, and instead of having I got fired. No. They fired my offensive coordinator. I wasn't going to stay there because I wasn't going to deal with this injustice. Like you can at least sell that to a future employer.
Yeah,
Because
like Benton.
any offensive coordinator worth their salt is going to want to bring in their guy to be in that QB room.
Correct. I agree with that, Tigo. I think Benton offensive line coaches can probably, weather the storm and fit different. It doesn't have to. It's not like Benton's role is just, West Coast, Shanahan style offensive, outside zone blocking scheme. No, zone blocking covers many different facets. It doesn't have to be a Shanahan influenced West Coast scheme. So he might be able to weather the storm. I don't know if he will, but he might be able to. So all good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Not really.
Braden wanted to was asking, I had it up for a while, like pairing potential offensive coordinators to quarterbacks. I mean, I wonder, is that something, before we even talk about possible pairing, like, is that something that can happen? Do you think that like part of the interview process, like, is going to be what would you like to test if they're in sync with them? Like, what would you do about our quarterback situation? What's your philosophy? What's your approach? Do you think that's an interview question or discussion that's going to take place when they talk to potential coordinators?
I think that's
right.
a question at the top of the list.
Yeah,
After,
I think.
Hi, how do you pronounce your name correctly? Cool. What's your plan at quarterback? Like that's how it goes. It's not even how are you. It's what's your plan at quarterback. Like
not how was the flight.
Yeah, no, that comes after. We'll talk about that after. What's your plan at quarterback? Of this free agency class, who do you like? Who do you think would fit with these weapons that we have? And what are you going to do about Zach Wilson? Because he is the number 2 overall pick. And your job is going to be to not only coach up a veteran and get us to the playoffs, but you need to fix Zach Wilson. Like, that's the job. So how are you going to do it?
Yeah. I think, listen, if there's some, goings on behind the scenes where you talk about, we're going to match up a quarterback and an OC with the next pairing. The only way that the only thing that makes sense on the surface, if you say, okay, Derek Carr is our target, so let's go bring in Greg Olson, who was his offensive coordinator when he had his best years with the Raiders, happens to be on the Rams staff, who McVay told each and every one of his staff to go seek work elsewhere. We won't block you. So that would make sense if that's kind of an angle. Again, it might be wishful thinking.
That would be my ideal pairing, would be Olsen and Carr. I think that would make the most sense.
I would agree. Every coordinator that I see, I mean, who's the one? It was the Philadelphia quarterback coach. I think it was, what's whatever that guy's name was. I saw that name pop up. I even saw one of the Bears offensive line coaches.
Scagriello, or is that his name?
Something. I don't think.
Shaxian.
Perfect. Yeah, but I'm seeing names like this, and it's just like, I don't want a first-time offensive coordinator. Not for this team. Not now. It's just time. It's like, you know what? Here's how we maximize this run game. Here's how we maximize Breece Hall, and bring in the quarterback who can give it to Garrett Wilson. Just throw it accurately to Garrett Wilson. That's a pretty good start to a passing game.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? Not that I want to get too far off the rails, but I feel like Mike LaFleur finally figured out that the best way to use the receivers was Garrett Wilson outside, Elijah Moore in the slot. That's not how it started off. We should point that out. But I think a big question on this offense is, what do you do at the second receiver? Do you bring back Corey Davis? Do you restructure him? Do you let him go? Or do you look for another option either through the draft or free agency? That is a big question for the future of this passing offense.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that Nathan brings up one little point I wanted to just throw in there, and then Tom, please. Middleton. We got to keep Middleton, right? I mean, if any coach on the offense stays, it's got to
promote him.
Yeah. Middleton's got to stay.
You would hope.
I just wanted to say that.
You would hope. I mean, everyone seems to love Ron Middleton. It's hard not to.
I think most of the offensive staff honestly stays. I think Benton stays. I think Middleton stays. I think a running backs coach stay. Like, the only position I really see us changing on the offensive staff is ultimately going to be the quarterback coach, because whoever's an offensive coordinator is going to bring their own guy. And then like wide receiver coach, because like we have to, like we need someone there because the guy's going to be suspended and we're not going to let them coach themselves. We got 3 young guys in that room.
It's amazing to me that if you remember last offseason, the Jets did not change one coach, not a single coach. And the first coach that they changed in the Saleh regime was the offensive coordinator, not a position coach, but the OC. That's amazing to me to think that that's the way that it's going down here.
Well, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, Adam, because I think everyone knew last year was a building year. You know, No one was really going to be held accountable. And I think, if we had ended up, 7-10 in a different fashion, I think you might run it back year 3 with the same thing. If we went win, loss, win, loss, loss, win, loss, win, win, loss, loss, win, loss, win, like all the way down, and not just had a total, collapse at the end, we might be having a different conversation right now.
It's weird how that works, right?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Mike LaFleur got fired because he started the year off insanely hot with what was very clearly bad quarterback play. And then once he got a little bit better quarterback play, it fell apart. And that's why he got fired. It's like, it's so interesting how he was able to win with just bad quarterback play out of Zach Wilson. And then Mike White comes in and he's just barely below average. And then we start losing.
I got the explanation for you.
Brees and AVT.
Well, AVT and Brees Hall.
Well, yeah, of course. But
Nah, you know what? I'm
letting go of Lawrence Cager devastated this offense.
I'm gonna beg to differ with that view that AVT and the losses of AVT and Brees doomed the season. It didn't help. That's for sure. But I think you can get by with. I mean, there's a couple different things. One, I think, you put a quarterback that plays halfway adequate in play, it completely changes the defensive mindset and the defensive scheme. And that alone, not having to deal with run fits and run blitzes every single time, is going to open up the running game. But defenses just dared our quarterbacks who were playing subpar to beat us. Secondly, I think the Matt Milano hit where it broke Mike White's ribs really played a part, because it's a different game. I think we're in a different situation if we have a healthy Mike White throughout that end stretch. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm not a Mike. I'm not.
We beat either Detroit or Jacksonville. We're playing for a playoff game in Miami if Mike White doesn't get hurt.
I think if he doesn't, I think if he doesn't get hurt, Mike White at all, and then if we don't have the even more damage to the offensive line, right? Like, I mean, because don't forget, they were back. Herbig, even before they didn't play in the last week, these guys were banged up. So it wasn't only that we were down to these guys on the line. They were playing in pain. Dwayne Brown was doing it all year. Herbig was banged up. He missed, and then he came back, but was still banged up. Fant's knee was never right. I mean, so not only were we down to these guys, but they were banged up, man. We saw it in the offensive line play. Those last 5 games were hard to watch with the offensive line.
You gotta really take the second Miami game, the last game of the season, crumble it up in a ball and throw it out. Because if that game means anything, like if that's a win and get in game,
Yeah.
I think Dwayne Brown plays. I think Herbig plays.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think, you know, I think they realized at that point, like, all right, we're done. The seaso's done.
Just think the three best players from the Miami game were Garrett Wilson, Braden Mann, and Jeremy Ruckert.
Yeah.
I want to go. We're going to talk about that because people are saying that in the chat, and I've been so everything else in my life. I haven't even looked at 22, and I didn't even get a report on that. So that's really good news. I'm hearing beautiful things. So Rucker played really well. Was it his blocking?
Oh, yeah.
He was blocking he was blocking his butt off. He was
a menace. I think Nania has a 3-minute clip of just Ruckert hitting guys as hard as he can and just moving, just like it is so. It's like one of my new favorite things now is whenever I watch the All 22 is watching a tight end pull across the offensive line and just dropping into a linebacker just at full speed. Like that should be illegal. Like that's a crime against humanity. And Rucker just does it so well because he's so quick and athletic. I love it.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about Ruckert's, you know, positive, you know, blocking game that he had, you know, he wasn't a factor in the passing game, but it was all done as an H-back, you know, nothing, you know, you didn't see any of that in line. I'm not saying he couldn't, and he does. I mean, that's what he is right now. Right now he's a blocking tight end, but they put him in Wesco's old spot, that kind of H-back lead block kind of thing. And he excelled on it. So, you know, if nothing more, we're onto something. We can find a role to utilize Jeremy Ruckert for next year.
Well, it sounds like he has to. I mean, you drafted him. He's young. And if he came in and took advantage of his opportunity, it's always good to go with youth. It's always good to, to have that. So, I mean, I would expect him. I'm getting, maybe with LaFleur gone, we won't have to put up with it, but it was very aggravating to deal with who wasn't dressing each week sometimes. Like it was like very questionable decisions. And it's, if this kid played that well, you can't just hide him now for another year. Like they don't seem to understand contracts and money. Like you have to consider that stuff. It's like you got this guy on the cheap for a certain amount of time. You just can't waste them away. You got to develop him on the field a little bit.
Well, you know, I think the drafting of Jeremy Ruckert wasn't meant for him to be impactful this year.
Right. No, and I get it. I'm happy that he got a development year, but it's got to be 1 year. Don't tell me next year he's going to sit.
Yeah, he's got to dress over Kenny Yeboah next year. Especially with Ruckert, like I honestly thought Ruckert, Clemens, and Max Mitchell might have had kind of redshirt years. Now Clemens was just too good. The offensive line was just too injured, and then Mitchell ended up being like, I think that was a really underrated blow to the offensive line, like with Mitchell, because it wasn't a normal injury. It just felt different. But dude, I mean, having a limping George Fant or Cedric Ogbuehi, it was a downgrade from how rookie Max Mitchell was playing. But with Ruckert, it's like you couldn't, at some point in the year, again, when your offense is, you can't do anything, and you know you can't do anything. You're going into Thursday night at Jacksonville. You know you don't have a quarterback. You have no quarterback, and there's no Jeremy Ruckert as an H-back as a blocker. There's no Chris Trevler on a 3rd and 2. It's just, all right, Zach, go figure out how to be a franchise quarterback, even though you couldn't 4 days ago. Like, to me, those, and maybe it's on Saleh, maybe it's on LaFleur, but to me, like, we didn't even go down swinging, man. We just got taken behind a shed and clubbed over the head with a stick mercilessly, and we didn't even claw back. We didn't have any change up. We didn't even try anything. We laid down and died. Like that's what happened. That we laid down and died the last 6 games of the season. It was embarrassing.
Not the last 6 games of the season.
The last 3 games
bet
of the season.
The last 3 games, yes. Yeah, I didn't expect a whole lot against Jacksonville. It was the way they played against Seattle that I was offended watching that game.
I agree with that.
I was offended.
I expected more from Jacksonville. Jacksonville was a big letdown. But then, you know, you're coming into Seattle, 10 days rest. Knowing your season and your playoff hopes were on the line against a team that you could beat. You know. Now I will say this: all those games that we lost at the end of the season, they were all to playoff teams. So you have to say that. But you know, man to man, dollar to dollar, I think that we, you know, with adequate quarterback play, we can hang with each and every one of the teams. We didn't have it. Now, you know, again, talking about LaFleur, the one thing I will say, if I'm being nitpicky, is last year the offense I thought was a disaster. Like I got so tired of seeing these little trick plays and these end arounds and these jet sweeps to get to Braxton Berrios, but they were making do with what they had. Right now, this year we had more, and when it wasn't working, like I found myself begging, all right, give me something. Give me Braxton Berrios on an orbit sweep, swing pass around the end where, he's going to do something like change it up. That's where I thought, if anywhere, Mike LaFleur kind of, fell short or failed, and not so much that he didn't adjust, but like when his balls were in the vise, and that's what it was. The offensive balls were in a big old vise. And you couldn't figure out a way to kind of unleverage that.
I was saying in those last few games, right? Yeah, decimated offensive line. Yeah, horrendous quarterback play. Yeah. I get it. But if you're a special coach, like in other words, if you're going to be the guy, do something. Just don't go 3 games without a touchdown. Do something. It's like, yes, it's very understandable that our offense is not going to be very good these few games. When you look at this situation, I'm not saying work miracles. I'm not saying score 30 points a game, but do something. Design some play. Take a few shots downfield, bomb passes for all I care if you got Flacco in there. But something. Do something. Design something. Score a touchdown or 2. Pull off the win anyway. Impress me. Find a way to impress me, because this is the NFL and this is real and this is a lot of money on the line, a lot of people, a lot of fans. It affects a lot of people. Don't go 3 games and don't score a touchdown and tell me, oh, it's the offensive line, it was the quarterback. No. You got to score a touchdown. Figure it out. And it's like, yeah, you can go to your grave saying all these excuses and they might all be real, but at the end of the day, if you look at and name great offensive coordinators, guys that you want on your team that could help lead your team to a Super Bowl, they're going to find a way to score a touchdown.
You can't argue that.
But like, here's the point
nothing to say to that.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that I will say is like, you're totally right? Like it's inexcusable to go 3 games without scoring a touchdown. Like we were playing for field goals. Like I think the best kicker on the planet is the one you never have to use except for an extra point, right? Because you're just punching things in. I want to pay a punter to hang out on the sideline because like that's how effective our offense. I want our offense to be, right? But like there's only like 3 or 4 special coaches, right? Like that's the whole thing. Is we just didn't have one because there's only 3 or 4 of those guys. It's the same thing when you look at like special quarterbacks. There's maybe only 2 or 3 of those guys in the NFL at any point in time.
Let me ask you this, Tigo. Our situation, our team, exactly how it's constituted, right? Do you think, what's his name? Eric Bieniemy. He's the offensive coordinator for Kansas City. Do you think Eric Bieniemy figures out a way how to win one of the Detroit or Jacksonville, Seattle, or Miami game? Do you think you don't?
I'm not an Eric Bieniemy guy.
No, I thought of Eric I said Bieniemy because I'm thinking of the most highest.
If we still had Brian, if we had Brian Dable as our offensive coordinator, for instance, how about that?
Like, but that's maybe because I think Brian Dable is a much yeah, he might figure something out, but Brian Dable is a better coach, right? Like, and I'm not going to sit here and try to even put like Brian Dable is a much better coach. And if you had to put betting odds on who's going to be the special coach, like who's going to be the guy that's going to replace, Andy Reid as the offensive guy when he retires, like I wouldn't mind putting Brian Dable as a guy in that conversation as might be the head coach of the Giants for the next 15 to 20 years because I think he's that smart. But again, now we're talking about a special guy.
Forget about head coaches. Even
if he was an offensive coordinator, that's a special guy. And there's only a couple of those guys in the NFL, right? And that's my point. I'm not saying that LaFleur failed at his job and that's why he got fired. But like if we had I am blanking on his name, but I just spent like 3 hours talking about him with a buddy of mine. And I'll ask this question is like the offensive coordinator in Detroit, if he was on the Jets, right? Because he's getting head coaching looks. If he was on the Jets those last 3 games, do you think we win those games? Because that's a guy, we have no idea what he's going to be as a head coach. We have no idea if he's special. But there's just another offensive coordinator. And with this offensive line and what's going on, there's a possibility that he could have figured it out. I don't know.
I don't know. I'll answer
Ben
your question,
Johnson.
Tico. I'll answer your question. I don't think Ben Johnson, I don't think whatever coordinator comes in makes that much of a difference in how the team performs on the field. What I will say is that maybe a different guy would have, schemed and figured out a way to cross the goal line. There was times where there was times. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for you guys. Where I expected between Jacksonville and Seattle and Miami, like 3 and out was not a surprise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was 3. It was first down. I'm going to run it. Second down, I'm gonna try to run some sort of short pattern that may or may not be complete, and then I'm dealing at best 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 9. You know what I mean?
And you don't have the pass pro to even have a shot.
And you don't have the quarterback that's going to make that happen.
I lead the touchdown chants for the Virginia Jets fans every time they score a touchdown. I was ready to start doing it every time they got a first down. I've almost forgot how the chant goes. It's been so long since I've had a chance to do it now.
Guys,
but can somebody explain just real quick? Why do we only go to Elijah Moore 1 to 2 times per game? He gets 1 target in the first quarter. He's never targeted again.
Well,
that is something I cannot understand.
That's the problem. And if the film would have showed that he was covered or he's not running his routes right, but correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but that's not what I was seeing.
No, and listen, earlier this evening, Green Bean and I filmed the video that will be out on his page probably tomorrow, where we went over exactly that. Like, this was not because of Mike LaFleur getting fired, but this is something that we had in the works. Like, let's show how these guys are schemed open. It's not just this is not just Mike LaFleur's fault. Like, Mike LaFleur is not the only reason, because there's numerous times and numerous plays and numerous games, and every single one of you knows it because you've seen it, where the guys are open and the quarterback's not making a decision, or he's hesitant to make a decision. And that's straight up and down the line. That's even a healthy Mike White. We talked about, I pointed out a bunch of plays in the Minnesota game when he was healthy, before he injured his ribs, where, the scheme is great and the inadequate or not being able to fully process the defense or what was going on or get through your progressions just causes. I mean, Mike LaFleur got guys open, and the players did not execute. So
but then that after the game comes down to coaching too, though. If you see on the film that they're open and the quarterback's not executing, then it comes down to coaching too for the next game, right? These are the opportunities that were missed. Where's the growth? Where's making sure your quarterback gets to the guy the next time?
That's on the players, not the coaching in my mind.
Yeah,
because
how do you
what quarterback's
coach a guy
been
to go
accurate
through his
this
progression faster?
Well,
if you're
you
staring down Garrett Wilson for 30 seconds,
you could call similar plays where Elijah Moore is earlier in the progression. Like if he's the third look or the second look, but you see he's getting wide open, call some plays where he's the first look. You know what I mean? Like, figure it out. I don't know, man, because every other team seems to figure out how to get the ball or get their quarterbacks, even quarterbacks that aren't great. They figure out how to get their players involved. That has to come down to the coordinator. It has to.
This was the game plan for week 18. Give it to 17. And it actually worked halfway decent.
But that's the thing. That's the argument, right? Like, when is the right time for 17 not to be the first read? Like, never. He's always should be the first read. He's by far and away the best wide receiver that we have.
Well, there are times where
should always be the second read.
There was a lot of attempts to him that didn't work out because he was just too covered and they were forcing the ball. So there were times where you could use him as a decoy and you can get it to Elijah.
But that's on the player. Don't force the ball to a guy that's covered.
Right.
Yeah, that's on Mike White looking and or Joe Flacco staring down Garrett Wilson because he's the best wide receiver, instead of knowing that on the other side of the field or in the slot or up the middle, we have a guy who's not, I'm not going to say just as good because he's not, but like we have a guy who's, a good wide receiver as well. at some point in time, the player has to execute what's on the book.
Yeah.
Flacco's
I
idea
get
in that game was, let me just get rid of the ball as fast as possible in front of this crap offensive line,
And
so
go
I
home.
don't leave the last
Yeah.
game of my career.
I get all
unearned.
that, but when it's quarterback after quarterback, at some point you got to figure it out. I don't know what to tell you. You got to figure out how to. I mean, other coaches figure it out. It's not just. I see weak quarterbacks that aren't very good, and they still get the ball to their other receivers. I'm watching Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft, distribute the ball and get it around to different players. So I mean,
one read.
someone's got to figure it out. I mean,
Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey, Kittle,
The best left
pretty good
tackle in
array.
football, a solid offensive line, arguably one of the best right
You
tackles.
want your
No, I know-
coaches to
I know
have the
that helps, but
mindset.
I'm
of,
not
like,
again. I'm not asking for 30 points a game. I was asking for a
Yeah.
touchdown, one
Yeah.
freaking
Right.
touchdown.
That's asking a lot, Jeremy.
Apparently.
Well, what's the number?
I don't
19.
disagree.
What's the number? 19 points or 22 points?
Yeah.
If we scored 22 points in how many games? We'd have 13 or 14 wins, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know who's not getting it? So with the Mike LaFleur blame thing, I feel like it's a circle of like quarterback, offensive line, play caller, quarterback, offensive line, play caller. And I think being left out of the loop is head coach. Because I'm sorry, you're the head coach. You're the head coach, and if your offense is trash, that falls on you too. I don't care if you're a defensive-minded head coach. You signed up to be the head coach. You hired this offensive coordinator. You had a heavy input on drafting the quarterback. So to me, like that's the a link here that's not getting enough heat. It's not Mike LaFleur's fault that our team came out dead on arrival in many of these games. It's not Mike LaFleur's fault that our defense gave up 200 yards in the first half against Seattle. That game was over the second Kenneth Walker took that ball 60 yards untouched on our defense. It was like I was like loading my stream, and Y2K's best friend Tyler Mabry was catching a freaking touchdown pass or whatever. It's not Mike LaFleur's fault that Bryce Huff is jumping off sides, that George Fant is doing a false start, that Dwayne Brown's getting that Corey Davis, who could line up correctly in Tennessee, can't line up correctly when he's a New York Jet. It's not Mike LaFleur's fault that Justin Hardy, who had one dead ball penalty in all of his career with the Saints, comes to the Jets and has 15 yards dead ball penalty, giving away over 100 yards. Here's 100 yards. Take it. I'm a gunner. Here's 100 yards. Take it. It's yours. That's on the head coach.
He absolutely was, as much as we could say about Mike LaFleur, he absolutely, at the same time, whether you believe he did a good enough job or not, wherever side you're sitting on, there's no question that also is true. He was a scapegoat. Without question. He was a scapegoat. He was a scapegoat for Robert Saleh, because every single thing I'm complaining about when I talk about situational coaching, every one of those play calls went through the headphones of Robert Saleh, the head coach. The head coach, when I complain about 4 drives in a row against Minnesota, first down, the first time we got inside the 20 in the red zone, first down was some ridiculous trick play, something stupid that had nothing to do with the rest of the drive. Every one of those drives, Robert Saleh had the opportunity to say, stop it, enough.
Yeah. I once watched Mike Tomlin literally go to his offensive coordinator when they were running some gimmicky stuff. Mike Tomlin went like this.
Right.
And that's we never saw something. I gotta head out, guys. But
that's why LaFleur's hanging out in the booth, so Saleh couldn't go up to him.
But like, you just hit a button, you just go, try again, boom, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Try again. It's not going to happen.
Or in your install, you get on the same page. Like like for Chris Streveler not being on the field, that's on the head coach. They go through that in their install. They decided on Tuesday that they probably weren't going to use like Chris Streveler situationally. I got to take off, guys, but it was a good time hanging out. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Have a good
night,
night,
Kevin.
Appreciate it, bro.
You know, he mentioned the name of one particular player. He mentioned the name Justin Hardy. Tigo, I give you all the credit for Mitchell and those guys, but it is now Pro Bowler Justin Hardy,
which I think is a little strange with all those dead ball penalties. But anyway, I just want to acknowledge some super chats. Tony Alexia. Thank you for
I couldn't see this shit coming.
I appreciate it. Trade Zach to Carolina. We want Cooper Rush. We do. And Strevler package. Okay.
He loves him so much and he can't spell the name right. I don't understand this.
I don't think I don't.
Strevler.
Thanks for the super chat, Tony. I appreciate it. I don't think a Strevler package would have been so awful or horrible in some of those games, because it couldn't have been worse. We didn't score a freaking touchdown. Thomas Cahill and Rucker is a beast, and MLF didn't see it.
Nah, I'm
I
going
don't
to
buy
disagree
that.
with you, Cahill, on that.
No,
Like I said,
He
I
may
just
have
don't.
seen it. He may have seen it. There was just no room for him to play.
No.
It wasn't in the cards for him to be a contributor this year.
And if you're asking about Kenny Yeboah, you got to remember, Yeboah played special teams. He's played as much special team snaps as anybody else on the Jets. The third tight end spot is for Brant Boyer to decide, and he trusted Yeboah in that spot.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I also didn't like when people were like, why isn't Mims playing? Why isn't Mims playing? Why isn't Mims playing? It's like, guys, Mims isn't playing because Brant Boyer doesn't want him to play. Stop blaming like Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur. Brant Boyer decides wide receiver 5. He decides cornerback 5.
I also never. It's hard to question stuff when we're not at the practices. I mean, we can't second guess coach from home based on the fact that he's 6'4" and runs a 4.4 all the time. We can't constantly say 6'4" runs a 4.4 because there's a lot of people in the world. Not a lot, but I mean, there are people in the world that are 6'4". Runs a 4.4 that aren't good NFL players. So we can't just sit there at home and say it when we're not at the practices. We don't see the routes. I mean, we were a little crazy about just insisting that Mims has to be great because he's big and he's fast. That's not always the case. And then when
I
he
got
got
really upset with Mims after watching him because he kept catching the ball with his body. Dude,
you're right.
You're huge.
Not a
you have
hands
massive
catcher.
hands. Just
right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's weird. It's weird because I didn't feel that way about him when he was in college. I didn't feel that he was a body catcher. I felt he was a guy who caught with his hands. But if something happened to him, because the reality is everybody yelled for Mims. But every time he gets an opportunity since last year, since this regime came in, he gets an opportunity and he drops passes. And
he still hasn't had his touchdown cherry popped yet. I mean, the only touchdown he's caught was in a freaking 4th preseason game, for heaven's sakes, or 3rd preseason game.
Well, listen, we'll see if we'll see come 2023 how much of an impact LaFleur or how much of a detriment LaFleur was if you see sudden vast improvement and development in the Denzel Mims and production of Elijah Moore and
right.
Agreed.
Dare we say Zach Wilson?
Right. If Zach Wilson will be the biggest, but I don't even know if he'll get a chance to play depending on who we bring in at quarterback. Right? Are we bringing in a guy he's going to compete with, or are we bringing in a guy where it's no question? There's no way you bring the guy in and then sit him. But if we start seeing Elijah Moore suddenly, 5 catches a game, he's getting 60 plus yards a game. Sometimes he's breaking 100, big part of the offense. And suddenly Mims is coming in a lot, making big plays and scores touchdowns for the first time in his career. If all those things are happening, you have to sit there at some point and say, okay, maybe this has something to do with the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, listen, what was Mims? I mean, not Mims. Was Elijah Moore's poor season a direct reflection on Michael LaFleur, or was it a reflection on how good and how kind of off the first step running did Garrett Wilson come in? Remember Garrett Wilson, what did he have? 80 some odd catches for 1,100 some odd yards, right? How many of those? How many of those 1,100? Yeah. How many of those catches would have been directed to Mims if Garrett Wilson wasn't there? Like last year, what Moore have? 50 catches? 50 catches, 800 yards, 6 TDs, something like that?
Yeah.
It was definitely better. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this regression coming. Yeah. But again, he was used outside too much. When he was used in the slot, that's the better spot for him. And it took a while for them to figure that out. But still, it amazes me that his best highlights are he's in scrimmages. We see how he jukes these players right out of their shoes. And it's amazing that we don't see that during the games.
Yeah. Well, guys, if we don't re-sign Corey Davis, like if we can't restructure him and he's gone, and we don't bring in anybody impactful, you might see Elijah go back to the outside. It might be Wilson and Elijah and Berrios in the slots.
They'd be putting Mims up. The hope is that Mims would be ready for it, but you can't trust Mims. I trust Wilson more than I trust Mims.
The hope was, and it might still be, we don't know. And there's a new coordinator comes in, might change things up, but there's still this chance that the thinking might be if Davis leaves, that I think Mims has the opportunity to win the replacement job of that, like to replace them. And it would be beautiful. He could just start catching the ball and
Ideally,
play the way we believe he could play or hope or dream he could play would be so awesome for us, right?
Listen, I think that was the plan all along.
Yes.
Is that you build that pipeline, right? We talk
Yes,
about that all the
pipeline.
time. Exactly. You build the pipeline. You have this guy, in the wings. So when player A leaves, player B steps in and nothing skips a beat. The good teams in the NFL develop those player pipelines where, if a guy goes down, next man up, and there's nothing there. That's why it's important to, for a GM or Joe Douglas in our case, to constantly be on the ball with that stuff. Like, all right, we don't need, we say, all right, we got 3 tight ends right now, but, we probably only have 1 more year of CJ Uzomah. We probably only, at most, have 2 more years of Tyler Conklin. That's why you bring Ruckert in. You draft a guy like Denzel Mims. Garrett Wilson's different. I think you draft Garrett Wilson to help you now, which obviously he did. But you draft a guy like Denzel Mims, knowing that he might not be the most refined, that he might take some time, but you just signed Corey Davis to a 3-year contract. So you got that window to kind of get him up and going. So that's the have we been able to put it into practice application? No. So was that coaching and scheme and LaFleur? We'll find out. We'll find out if these guys take this monstrous, step the next year. Then maybe you can, in hindsight, you can say, maybe they weren't being developed right, or maybe they weren't being utilized right. Like, I absolutely think that Elijah Moore can be an outside receiver.
Well,
I would
too.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't want him running go routes the whole time.
Oh, please no.
Not with that O-line.
I want to say
the other thing. Oh, go ahead.
Be Kotchery.
I was just going to say when Mike White before he got hurt was playing well as far as moving the ball. I know we weren't scoring touchdowns, but like the Chicago game, he did score. But I'm saying when we were moving the ball before he got hurt, Elijah was alive. Elijah was making catches. He was involved. He came alive a little bit for a while there with Mike White. So it's there. Elijah's there. And you're right. I go back to what you guys were saying before. It is true. When we had a quarterback that was going through more of the progressions, we did see some things from Elijah, but then unfortunately Mike White got hurt and then everything went back to crap again. And we could,
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at his game log right now. And
who, Elijah?
Yeah. I'm actually looking at it right now. And just for the number of catches, I mean, I could go, I'll just go by catches. 5, 3, 4, 3, 1, 0. That's the game he was suspended for. Then 2, 2, 2. That was New England, Chicago, Minnesota. His high was 6 in the game at Buffalo. That was his high in catches. Then it was 4, 2, 2, 1. The season ends with an absolute thud as the quarterback play sinks with a thud. Yeah. So I don't know if Elijah is the type of player who will make a quarterback better than he is. I think Elijah needs a good quarterback himself, if that makes sense. Whereas Wilson can make almost any quarterback look really good.
Right. Garrett Wilson's the one who makes he's the go-to guy. He's the one that makes the quarterback look great. He's the quarterback's best friend. He's the guy. But Elijah is the guy who's going to make you pay. This is what I was hoping with big plays. Once you start to focus on the guy, we got to stop Garrett Wilson. They start putting their attention, and then you get burned by Elijah. That was my hope.
Yeah, and you know what? That mimics kind of like the San Francisco model, although their play styles might differ completely. You have Deebo Samuel, who's the alpha, right?
Right.
And then you have Brandon Ayuk, who will make you pay when you're paying too much attention elsewhere, whether it's the backfield, the McCaffrey, whether it's, trying to figure out how to stop or minimize Deebo Samuel. Then you have Brandon Ayuk. I don't know if Elijah Moore and I almost want to take this, put like an asterisk next to the season for him. But I thought Elijah Moore was more of an alpha receiver than he showed this year. And hopefully next year, there's a new scheme, a new coach, and a new attitude, and he proved me wrong. But I think he might be more Ayuk than Deebo. And I'm not talking play style. I'm not talking play style. I'm talking about that mentality of that true WR1.
Well, I think you really see it when you watch Garrett Wilson, because to me it was an education on what it felt like to have a real number one receiver. Just the like when the helmet comes off and he's still running, and the anger and the I was like, ooh, he's a man. He's a man. He's a kid, but he plays like a man.
As opposed to Rashad Perriman.
Yeah. Can we bring back Keelan Cole, for Christ's sakes? Can we bring back Keelan Cole?
Oh, the genius of staying in bounds against New England. I will always appreciate Keelan Cole for that to help keep New England out of the playoffs.
I want to finally acknowledge this super chat from Thomas Cahill, Paris Johnson, and John Schmidt, and we're in the Super Bowl.
John Michael
What do you guys think of that? Paris Johnson and John Schmidt, and we're in the Super Bowl.
I'll take the lead on it, since I'm knee deep.
I love
right
both
now.
those guys. I love both of those guys.
So, they're both good players.
Yeah.
But I have the more film I watch, and like I said, I've been very, very involved in some of these prospects and game film, and the little bit of all 22 that I can get on the college, which is very, very difficult to get.
Oh, yeah.
Paris Johnson is I'm seeing a lot more that I'm not too happy about. Put it this way. I'm going to say if Paris Johnson was a selection, that's fine. But I don't think it's, to me, he's not slam dunk right away. Like, I think Paris Johnson's going to have a very, very difficult transition to the NFL. Just his body makeup. He's very tall. He's very long, and he's prototypical, like, height, weight, length for what you want your tackle, but he doesn't use it properly. He plays very upright. He always lets the defenders get their hands on him, and that's a death sentence for an offensive lineman.
He got away with a lot in college.
If you let those defensive players get their hands on you and extend your arms, you're on your heels, you're off balance, it throws everything off, whether it's a pass set or a run set.
I like the guy that Tigo likes. What's the other big tackle?
Skronsky, Broderick.
Yeah.
Broderick Jones.
I was going to ask about Broderick. Yeah,
Stradomsky or whatever his name is. I like that.
I like Skronsky because he reminds me personally, when I was watching him, of AVT.
Oh, it's same build.
That's the vibe I get out of Skronsky. My fear with a guy like Skronsky, and why I don't think he's the first offensive lineman taken, is the arm length. Does he have the arm length to be an NFL tackle? I don't know, because he hasn't done it yet.
That sounds like
exactly, and that's the whole thing, right? Is that he seems to be another AVT, and if it was up to me, if he's there at 13, he's the pick. I am sprinting to the podium because he fixes multiple positions at the offensive line, in my opinion, Peter Skronsky, because now you have the option of saying you can play right tackle, you can play left tackle, you can play left guard, or you can play right guard, and it doesn't matter. And you literally just throw AVT and Peter Skronsky and say, you guys are competing for all four positions not named center.
Yeah.
Whoever's the best is going to get the left tackle. Whoever's second best is going to get right tackle, and we'll fill the rest of the line in. And you
I don't
just
think
work
Teagle
that
likes
way.
Becton right now.
No, I love
And what about
Becton.
Max Mitchell? Are you giving up on Max?
No, I love Becton, but it's
Okay.
one of those things where, can you imagine an offensive line next year of Becton at left tackle? You go AVT at left guard. Insert any center here. I would love if it's the Schmitz kid out of Minnesota, because after Jeremy brought up that Dom liked him, I watched every snap of his in college, and I am in love. But I have a
Don't
hard
tell
time
Rusty
going,
he still wants Jared Patterson.
I have a hard time going first round tackle, second round center kind of a thing. And it's one of those where we still have holes on the defense, but that offensive line would be insane, because you still have Max Mitchell, who I think could still probably play guard at the next level. And there's a lot of opportunity to go that way, because I think Becton is going to come back. I still love Max Mitchell. Peter Skronsky is a dog. And if you're telling me my interior offensive line is, who's the Carolina? Is it Bradbury is in Carolina, or is he Minnesota?
Bozeman.
Bozeman, whichever,
Bozeman's in
either
Carolina.
one, Bozeman or Bradbury. Let's say you bring
We're
in a
both
free
free
agent.
agents.
Yeah,
Oh, Garrett
you bring
Bradbury's
in a free
Minnesota.
agent, say a center, and then you just line him up next to Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker, Peter Skoronski, and Max Mitchell as your offensive line. I could play quarterback for the New York Jets. and I'd have
You're
a-
forgetting
Tomlinson's gonna
one
play.
big thing though, Tigo.
Tomlinson's going to
We're
play.
stuck with the contract.
Tomlinson's playing.
You can't leave Tomlinson out. I'm sorry.
And I don't
get it, but-
Yeah, Tomlinson's playing and
and that's why I don't think we go offensive line in the first round.
well, listen, I'll say this about the tackles.
I think we do.
I think Skoronski is my favorite offensive lineman in the draft.
And by the way, Skoronski is very, very good pass blocking. He's not just run blocking.
Skoronski does remind me of AVT. However, AVT's strength is what he does in the run game. Skoronski's strength is what he does in the pass game.
Yeah.
Skoronski let up 3 pressures from left tackle all year long.
Oh,
Jeez.
gosh.
He's technically sound, but
Oh yeah,
he's 292 pounds, so he's definitely light. He's got short arms. He's probably going to be a guard at the next level, but he's going to be one that makes a lot of noise. If you're looking for if you want a true pure tackle,
Broderick?
I think it's probably Broderick Jones.
yeah.
There's a couple guys that I like later. The kid from Oklahoma, Harrison, I think is really, really underrated. I think he's very, very good. Like I said, Paris Johnson, the more I watch, the less enamored I am. I think he'll be a first rounder, but he wouldn't be my choice. Like I don't think, put it this way, I don't think he's plug and play left tackle right off the get-go. He'll probably spend a couple years inside at guard. Very similar to what Dallas did this year with Tyler Smith, who they drafted in the first round last year from Tulsa, who was one of my favorite prospects in the whole offensive line crop. But he just couldn't cut it all that much at tackle. So you put him inside, let him learn his chops, and eventually you move him outside. So I think
Tevin Jenkins is going to happen with him.
I think
When
Tevin
he
Jenkins
moved
is now a
inside-
guard. Yeah, I think he's now a guard. Yeah,
But I think in a couple years he's going to get a shot outside again, and I think he might be able to convince an NFL team that he's a tackle.
No.
That's
Guys,
also
if we
because I
can-
liked Tevin Jenkins.
Guys, if we keep this up, they're going to be begging for a mock draft tonight.
Well,
not
we
there
will
yet.
have,
Tony, stop. It's not
we
a
will
camp.
have plenty of time to guys, just so everybody knows, Sunday me and Dom are Stumpsy, we're starting the show again that I guess we stopped a few weeks before the start of the season, so we're going to resume our show of looking at all these different prospects.
Mhm.
We're going to go position by position, and we'll do some mock drafts just to bring up some names, because I'm going to do the mock draft in a different way, not only for the fun of doing the mock draft, but when you do the mock draft, it will show based on where we are likely players, as best you can, that are projected to be available. And it's a good way just to learn the names, right? Like, hey, Dom, here's 3 guys. I don't know this guy. If Dom doesn't know, then it helps us do some research. But
Dom knows. Dom knows. Oh, Dom knows.
Know. I have a feeling Dom is going to know.
Stay humble, bro.
For about
I
the
am
first 200,
upset.
for about the first 200 players, I think Dom's going to know.
I think it's a lot deeper than that this year. I am personally upset with Dom
Why is that?
because the season, as far as I'm concerned, is over, and I want his draft guide. And I want it
It's-
out because I am
it's-
so excited for that. You have no idea.
It's coming.
We're a
It's
good
coming.
Dom bomb. With the Dom bombs. We got Woj bombs in basketball. We got Dom bombs.
Excuse me. Yeah, listen. And this is my favorite part of the year, especially because we're out of it. If we were still in the playoffs, my story might change a little bit, but getting ready and all this draft stuff and all the speculation and the research and the digging, like that's what I live for.
Yeah.
That's why I had so much fun putting together this draft guide. I'm getting to go to the Senior Bowl. I got my credentials, so
I didn't know
I
if that
will.
was public yet, so I didn't tweet. it or
Yeah, no,
anything,
I will
but
be.
that's
I will
awesome.
be. I will be at the Senior Bowl. Full credentials, so I'll have the inside scoop. Get to watch the practices, be involved with all the guys at the podium. You get time with them after the practice, so I'll have a much more in-depth inside look at these guys too. So I think it's pretty cool. And to boot, just found out we got Green Bean in with me, so he added on to
that's
my
awesome.
credentials. So we're going to be down there together.
Oh,
And I
that's so
understand that
awesome.
one of the coaching staffs will be the New England Patriots.
I don't know.
this
You know what?
No, that's
I
for
didn't
the
look at it.
East-West Shrine Bowl.
year.
I don't know who's coaching.
East West Shrine Bowl? Oh, okay. Because
because that's
I
the
would,
Falcons.
what I would
and
give
the
for Green
Patriots.
Bean to be asking like Belichick questions at a press conference. Oh, I would pay for that.
Yeah. So I think this year they're doing it a little different. I think what they're doing is they're taking coaches from different teams, if I'm not mistaken. They're saying, okay, hypothetical. They're saying Jets, what position you guys want to, really work with and look at. Oh, we want to see the linebackers. Okay. Send us a coach and they'll be the linebacker coach. And then Minnesota, you want offensive lineman. Okay. Send us a coach and they'll be the offensive line coach. I think that's how they're doing it this year.
Thomas Cahill, thank you for the super chat before. I appreciate you. Tony Alexio, you put in crazy comments, but you do a lot of super chats, and I appreciate them. So, I'll humor you anytime if you, because I appreciate the support of the channel.
Imagine if
LaFleur
you
is
did
a
that 50
cancer.
times, I'd have eaten 2 more slices of pizza.
LaFleur is a cancer. Exactly. We want Strevler time. So you made sure you got it in, boy. Everybody knows you love Strevler. Even you got Billy laughing about it. So I want to say hello to some people. David Gerard, what's going on, my friends?
Hey,
David.
Some guy is here. Everybody's here. We haven't had a chance to say hello, but all of our guys are here. Twisted and Harlan, of course, such a great friend, such a great supporter of the channel. My good friend John Nolte is here. Salty Nolte. Matthew Smith, the annoying kid, is here. I call him annoying. I insult him, but he's great to the channel. We have a couple of Miami Dolphin fans here that are good friends.
Grandizer, my dude.
Grandizer's here, and him. I'm not looking at his name right now, so is here. Everybody's here. So thanks for Chiefs Live is here. Some of the guys that go back a long time that have really supported the channel. And then Johnny Marahiel, who is a good friend of mine. I'm glad to see him here. He yelled at me the other day, and I got lectured. It was kind of what I need sometimes. Sometimes I need to be put in my place, and Johnny Marahiel puts me in my place.
Have you heard from Peo time lately, or is he in hibernation after the way the Rams just?
He was live tonight. I was watching him.
Was
He
he?
was live tonight. Yeah, he was doing a kind of like a mock end of season. What do you want?
Now he
to
knows.
see kind of show.
Now he knows how it feels. Okay.
Yeah, he's doing
He's
his
a
own
good guy.
thing, but yeah, he's a great guy. We're still good buds. So I do have to say hello to him. Weed the People's here. What's going on? Weed the People. Good to see you. Thanks for supporting. And of course, Grandizer is here doing his thing, producing and moderating and doing all that great stuff. So we appreciate you, my friends.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so I what I think is going to be fun. This is what I get most excited about, Dom. Like, it starts with the first round. This is how it progressed last year. When we do the mock drafts, it goes to the first round, and right away we get to start seeing the 5 or 6 guys, and that are really premier that we could possibly consider, and then start wondering which one's going to slip. Like, that's how it happens. There'll be guys. There's going to be guys that we want in that first top 10. But there's going to be enough. There'll be 4, whatever it is. There'll be like 4 names, something like that. And then it's just going to be about how can they slip, and we'll get to know about those 4 guys. And then we'll also, when we get to the second round, it's going to be the same kind of thing. Like, who are the guys that might be there in the second round and all the excitement. And then we'll also look at the different trades. The one thing I like the simulator for with the trades is they seem to be realistic in the point system. Like, they use the point system. So every trade that's being offered to you is not crazy far-fetched in the sense of how they rate the value of the picks. Right. So you get some idea of the value of your pick. Like, we'll learn how valuable is the 13th pick for the teams that are in the 20s, in the mid-20s, that are trying to trade up. I think it gives you some type of understanding of the value of the pick.
Well, you know what I also think is interesting? Think it's interesting is that depending on which simulator you use is really dependent on how the players are ranked or where they go off the board, like PFN is what seems to be, the default go-to that we always use, Jeremy. That might be completely different than PFF. PFF might have, Jeremy Cravat going number 1 overall, where PFN has him somewhere in the 130 range.
Yeah, no, we definitely noticed that. I noticed that last year, though, because some of the other ratings had guys in the first round at the end of the first round that were in the third rounds in other places, and that happened with Watson, the wide receiver, right? I mean, he was like still being held back and projected in like 80 in PFN, but then one of the other sites had him, moved to the back of the first rounds to be selected. So you never really know. And then there's those hacks. I call them hacks at Walter Football. And they totally have, like I'll go there and start. I get blown away by how different they are.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they get the ranking from, but I like the Jets X factor offseason simulator, where you could cut players, re-sign free agents, sign outside free agents, but then you do the draft. But the draft ranking that I see on there was just unbelievable. It was like Dameon Pierce, I got in the 6th round one time. I'm like,
it's
how
not.
I pulled that off.
Yeah, it's hard to keep. You need to stay on top of it and keep it fresh. And
you do, even with PFN. And I like PFN, but I did my first mock draft this past week. You know who I got at 13 for the Jets? And the 13th pick, Jalen freaking Carter. I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd sprint to the podium.
Sign me
Batman
up.
And Superman up the middle. Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
Right.
Let me know when he slips out of the top 5. All right, then we can talk about
top
trading
5,
up.
top 1.
Oh
The
my
Bears would be
gosh.
stupid to not take him.
Jets 8:30. I see you, buddy. Good to see you, Jets 8:30. Wild Wave, thoughts on Brian Branch? Now, you guys, I don't know, Wild Wave, if you saw my video. Of course, I'll credit Dom C. He turned me on to the guy, and then I did a video on the guy, and then I watched the guy play.
It just got better and better and better.
It got better and better because then I watched him in that bowl game, and I said, "Oh, this is so exciting!" And so many times I watch a game to look at a specific player, and they do nothing. I turn on the TV, and I swear to you, it was like the middle of the first quarter. The first play I watch, Brian Branch, a tackle for a loss. He created a 3-yard loss. Then, series of downs go back and forth. He goes back onto defense in the next series and gets an interception. Yep. And I'm just thinking, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. He was clearly the best player on that defense, and that is a hell of a defense in Alabama.
Absolutely. Agreed. He is he's probably one of, if not my favorite prospect in the entire draft. Now, that doesn't mean that I think he should go number 1 overall, position, no one's going to take a safety that high. And realistically, I think personally that 13 is probably too rich of a capital to that Joe Douglas will take it, because he's shown a propensity not to say that he doesn't value the position, but he knows that he can get value cheaper or later, whether it's a low priced, modestly effective veteran like LaMarcus Joyner, or an undrafted free agent like Tony Adams, who both saw the field plentiful. So I just don't know if Brian Branch, if we stay at 13, I don't know if Brian Branch is going to be in the cards for us.
But if we trade down to 22,
I don't think Branch is there. I think Branch goes. I think he's anywhere from pick 12 to 18.
Listen, he could go anywhere from 12 to 30 or 12 to 40. You're absolutely right, Tigo. Because there's going to be teams. The safeties seem to always go to the bottom third of the first round. It's rare when safeties are taken early, which is why, when we took Jamal Adams, it's still mind-boggling. But, the better, just look over previous drafts. Derwin James, who's, maybe the best safety in the league, was pick 18. Minka Fitzpatrick was a little higher. I'm trying to go off the top of my head. Last year, I think there was 2 safeties or 3 safeties taken the first round, but none of them. Hamilton, Lewis Cine. No, Lewis Cine
was the last pick.
and Daxton Hill was the Cincinnati pick.
And they were all like
They're all listen.
backups.
They're all great. They're all great.
Well, Scene got hurt early on, so
Scene was my favorite. Scene was my favorite safety prospect last year. But I digress. That's why I think Branch is going to fall. My biggest fear is that Branch ends up in New England or Buffalo, both teams which are in need of a safety and someone who has that flexibility that Branch offers. Because I don't think he's similar to Daxton Hill. Like, he's positionless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They played that star or that rover backer in college where they play some in the slot, manned up on receivers. They play some in the box like a typical strong safety. They have the chops to play deep center field. But Brian Branch, I mean, he has the high. He's probably the best pure tackler in the draft. He's got hips as fluid as Sauce Gardner. He's got ball skills like the Honey Badger. Like I said, I comp him. He's Jamal Adams with Tyrann Mathieu's ball skills and the speed of Antoine Winfield Jr. That's Brian Branch.
I love him, but I gotta test one thing. Okay, I'm just doing this for a second. Hey, John Post, a good friend, Pure General Fantasy Sports, can't comment because he's watching on his big TV. So since he's on his big TV, I wanted to make my head really big. Look at my big bald head on your big TV, John Post. This is for you, John. Okay.
Oh man, no wonder the price of eggs keeps going up.
But Brian Branch is probably, obviously I know a lot of people are very married to offensive line, and I don't blame anybody for that.
Mhm.
But it still doesn't change the fact that Brian Branch would be an incredible scorer. And if somehow it works out, we trade back or whatever it is, and he ends up a Jet, like, get excited. Like, if it happened, get excited. Because he's special. He's an impact player.
You're absolutely right.
He's an impact player.
13
You
is
love
going to be
Sauce
really
Gardner,
interesting.
You like impact players. You like Sauce Gardner. You like Hugh Williams.
Whatever the
You like
position
guys
is.
you like guys that make big plays. Brian Branch is going to be an impact player.
13 is going to be really interesting for the Jets because, like, when I look at it, it's one of those positions in the draft where I don't think that there's really going to be a offensive line that's a prospect that's super worth it at 13 because I think Broderick Jones at 13 is a little bit of an overdraft. I'm with Dom. I'm not a Paris guy. I don't think Skoronski is available at 13. I already said that if he is, I'd sprint to the podium and he's the pick in my eyes. But then you look at it and you go, it might be a little bit of a reach at 13 for a Brian Branch. And that's kind of what we need as a safety. And then it's just like, that's also too soon to like go linebacker because like Trenton Simpson at 13 is like way too early in my eyes.
Yeah.
And this class or this draft class is filled with what guys at positions that we don't need. We don't need an edge. We don't need a corner. And there are so many good corners and so many good edges that you're going to see a run on these guys right after the QBs get taken. And it's just going to go edge, corner, edge, corner, interior defensive lineman, edge. And I just look at 13 and I go, what do the Jets do? Who's coming up for an edge? Who's coming up for the 5th or the 6th edge? Who's coming up for the 4th cornerback? And I just look at 13. It's going to be a really interesting spot to be at because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's what I'm really excited about with this draft process coming up because it's like, if we stick at 13, there's a million different directions that you can go in. But if you go out, who's coming up and why?
Yeah.
Is someone coming up to 13 for AR-15? Like, is that the move? Is somebody doing that? Like, it's such an interesting conversation to have because there's always going to be the player that slips and there's always going to be the player that people are that teams are going to get scared isn't going to fall and they go up and get him. So what happens there?
Well, I got to agree with you with the sentiment that this draft, the strongest positions are hands down cornerback, running back, and edge, and 3 positions that we probably have, our positions filled. You can always draft another edge, and I don't rule out that this regime doesn't take another edge player, especially with, if the idea that Carl Lawson's not back, there might be another one coming. But But yeah, those are definitely the three strongest positions. I don't see us drafting a cornerback. I mean, unless the value later on in the draft is just too ridiculous. We definitely probably are not drafting a running back, period. End of sentence.
Mhm.
And edge is just like we said. There's the tackle position is deep. I think I happen to like the second and third round talent, those middle round guys, a lot more than some of these bigger names here. And maybe it's because I'm watching the bigger, these first and second round talent guys a little bit more, but I'm finding a lot more stuff to pick out personally, from my eye, than some of these middle round guys.
Quick
from what
30
I've seen
seconds
in-
on Blake Freeland. What do you think of the BYU kid? I know
So
he's older and all
yeah,
that stuff, but
so-
6'8", 300, Jesus.
The problem with Blake Freeland and the biggest problem that everyone's going to have is that he's going to be a 25-year-old rookie. Now, we also had one in Michael Clemens, so it's not out of the realm. I'm not talking for the Jets, but guys like that, guys like that just come off of the boards of some of these teams.
God. I'm
What's
sorry.
that?
I just threw up in my mouth.
I just find things that I know are going to get a reaction from Matt.
Oh, I
I'm
didn't
not
see
even
the
mad at D-Hop. I'm mad at the $33 million cap hit.
yeah.
And the declining play for 2 years and injuries, but we'll leave that aside.
And the
Yeah.
fact that he was suspended, and Joe Douglas is all about character.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying if D-Hop was a Jet, I'm not mad at it. I'm just mad
No.
at that cap hit.
Right. Of the cap hit. I mean, if there was a way to make it happen where it wasn't a painful thing or didn't hurt the team in some other way by taking up cap space or whatever it was, if there was a way to make it happen and we still have all of our other players and everything, sure. The problem is that we just can't get these guys without, there's everything has a price.
We
That's
have
what
other
I've
things
learned.
to
There's no
do. We have
it's
to
not like
extend
we're-
Q, and we need a quarterback. Those
Right.
are
But Q's
priorities 1 and
contract
2.
doesn't kick in until next year. It's
Yeah,
not going to hit
they're
this
gonna
year. It's going
sign
to
him.
hit after.
I know when it's going to hit, but they could always change this year up a little bit.
Look. I would love like Hopkins in his prime. My God,
Well-
of course, we would love that. You pair that with Garrett Wilson. You're talking about now competing with Waddle and Hill, but I mean, we got to be realistic here. I mean, I don't think we're going for a big name, expensive wide receiver right now. We have to fix up our offensive line, and we have to. We need help on defense. We have some real holes on defense, and most importantly, we need a quarterback.
Yeah.
We have to extend Q Williams, and we need a quarterback. That's where the money's going.
Thank you.
Can't disagree with that.
Back to Blake Freeland because you never finished. I'm
Um,
actually curious because I like the idea of him, but I'm scared of 125 and also 6'8", 300.
So 6'8" concerns me more than 300. He doesn't play. Again, he's tall. He would be an ideal guy. Now take his height away from him. He would be an ideal guy to say, okay, you know what? We're going to move you inside and you're going to learn how to play offensive line at the guard before we kick you out in year 3 or something like that. But, he'd be the tallest guard ever known to man at 6'8.5". He's just a little,
So big.
he's a little stiff for my liking. He doesn't play
That's
super.
what she said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he plays upright and he's stiff. He's stiff in the hips and he doesn't bend well. That's what happens when you're 6'8.5".
Right. Long in the tooth.
Yeah, he's gonna be a project for someone, but I'd like that someone to be
Not us.
yeah, not us exactly.
I wasn't saying that he should be us because where he's gonna go, I'd much rather take like a center. It's just he's a name I keep seeing coming up, and I don't know what to think about him.
Dom, I got a question for you. From the little bit of the rankings that I've started to look at this week,
Mhm.
it seems to me one of the weakest positions in this draft is really interior offensive line between guard and center. Is that something you would agree with?
I think the weakest. I mean, I think there's a cliff that falls off at the interior defensive line.
Defense. Okay.
Yeah, I think there. I don't think there's any. Listen, there's no lock-in stud, no blue chip interior lineman. There's no one that's, maybe Osiris Torrance, makes it into the first round, but he's a big body. He's going to fit a specific scheme. That's going to be the problem is he's a power blocker, big body. He's not going to be someone that plays well in an outside zone scheme, so on and so forth. So, he has a chance. I think he'll be a first rounder. I think Skoronski,
Really?
I think Skoronski will move inside. So you can say that there's an interior lineman there. And after that, there's no one that really, really is guaranteed or a lock for that first round. But I think the interior, especially at the center, I think rounds 2, 3, 4, you're going to see a lot of good NFL players come out of this draft in the NFL in the next couple of years. You can see a lot of good NFL players that come from from the interior offensive line from rounds, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on.
It's just
we're
not
seeing
top
some
heavy.
of these
It's not
names
top heavy. It's not very top heavy. That's a good way to put it. It's deep, like the tackle. It's deep. I think there's going to be some good players. I don't necessarily think it's top heavy. I happen to agree with Tigo. I think Skoronski is my favorite offensive lineman. I'll call him a tackle because he lines up, right now as a tackle. And people are going to argue that it's, Broderick Jones is their favorite. People are going to argue that Paris Johnson is their favorite. You're going to say some that say Anton Harrison is their favorite. All 4 of them will probably be first rounders because left tackles are, a treasured commodity.
Hey,
Adam,
do you know how we say he always gives himself away? Like anytime he'll have us fooled, he can't resist. He'll give himself away. So I thought the Duck 456 was a new subscriber, but I saw him do this.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, there
and
it
then
is.
I realized I know exactly who the Duck 456 is. Okay.
Yeah.
But to go on, like I look another position that I look at that is not top heavy. I don't think has a number one guy, but has a lot of guys that could be number 2s as wide receiver.
Yeah.
I don't look at any of these guys and say they're a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. None of them. I think because I think Addison has to get the Juju and or Devontae Smith treatment where it's just like you have to put somebody else on the other side of him to take the attention away, and that's where they're going to shine. And then like Quentin Johnson at 6'4" is really, really tall, but like I'm pretty sure he runs like a 4.6. So it's not like he's going to have to be a technical route runner or a contested catch guy, and it's just like
nah. I beg to differ. I really like Quentin Johnson, and he runs a 4.4.
Does he?
Yeah,
he doesn't look like it.
He runs a 4. Well, he's also 6'4", 215 pounds, so he does it very, very long and smooth strider. I think that he has a chance to be, a true alpha male at the wide receiver position.
Interesting.
I don't know if he comes in and lights the NFL on fire, but. And I really like Jordan Addison. I think Jordan Addison is the closest thing to Garrett Wilson in this draft class. And then there's a bunch of guys, if we're going to talk about receivers, there's a bunch of guys that are your, speedsters. There's tons of them. Jalen Hyatt,
I love Hyatt.
Downs from North Carolina. I think it's going to be a great player. But they're one-trick ponies right now. They're deep threats.
Yeah, but that's what I looked at.
Throwing that, I mean, I wouldn't want to waste a high pick on him. But if we were in the 4th round and you gave me some crazy speedster wide receiver just to throw into the mix of our room and to have that threat, like we have this guy we could bring in who could just open up the back end of the the defense. All right, like I don't mind having scary players like that on our team.
Yeah, there's a good receiver. I'll give you a name to think about. I mean, it's definitely not going to be a day 1 pick. Probably, he'll fall somewhere late day 2, maybe early in the 4th round. Go ahead.
Is it Rome Odunze?
No.
No.
Jeremy, this might be our new Kyle Phillips, so we better pay attention.
Well, he's built a lot differently than Kyle Phillips.
Okay.
Rashi Rice.
That's what I just
from SMU. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's built like DK Metcalf. He's 6'2", 200 and some odd pounds, runs a 4.3, but he's got that 5th year, but he's not refined, so I think he's going to be a deep threat. He's fluid. Like I said, he's athletic. You know, he does. Oh, he moves like Tyreek Hill in a 6'2", 215-pound frame.
Hello.
Yeah.
I always, in my mock drafts that I do, if Rashee Rice is available in the third, which he isn't very often, but if he's there, he's my sprint to the podium pick.
Yeah, somebody's gonna probably take a roll the dice on him for that that word that I can't stand, that potential. He's a very high ceiling player. He's gonna take a little bit of time. He needs to refine his skills. He's not a route runner. He's got like three specific route schemes in his bag. He doesn't run the full tree. He's got a go. He's got a slant, and he's got a hitch, a screen hitch. That's it.
Well, knowing this offensive staff, how it has been, it's like you got to know how to play every single position in the offense. But is that different with Michael LaFleur gone? So who knows?
Yeah, true.
I'm going to call it now, and I'm going to call it early. You remember how last year we all fell in love with the idea of like Chad Muma in the third round, and that was like the go-to linebacker that we were all taking in the third round, kind of a thing. If we didn't get one in the first or whatever, I'm putting this out there now and early. A guy that might fit that mold, our Chad Muma of this year, a guy that we might insta lock in the third round if he's there and if he's available. I have slowly but surely started really, really liking the idea of Jack Campbell out of Iowa. He's just so big and so like physical, but then like you add the fact that he is fast and he can still do the coverage things that we need him to do. I have started to look at him and be like, make him a New York Jet.
The only problem with Campbell is that he misses way too many tackles.
Oh, he'll fit right in here. That
he misses way too many tackles. Like that's why I'm much more of a Drew Sanders guy than I am a Jack Campbell. Drew Sanders is going to be a good linebacker.
Out of Arkansas,
yeah, and again, same round, same area, second, third round guys, so on and so forth. But on that note, guys, listen, I got to run. I appreciate you guys taking me on this journey with you, Jeremy. Again, you need to talk, reach out.
Thank you,
I'm
brother.
here. Yeah. And it's always a pleasure to talk ball with you guys. Honestly, I mean that wholeheartedly. Chat, you guys are the best.
we appreciate you.
Yeah, man. So
we
will see you here on Sunday with Jeremy, right?
Yep, we'll be here Sunday at I don't know, 8 p.m., 9 p.m.
Yeah, but probably about 9 p.m., something like
9
that.
9 p.m., yeah. Something
Hey,
like
want to do it during a game? I don't know.
Oh, there is a
Got to
there's a
keep that in
football game
mind
tonight. Yeah, there is a football game. Well, we can listen. The Jets aren't playing. If you want to still stream, we can, Jeremy.
We could do it. We could do it. We'll figure it out.
You
I'd
can
rather
also
watch you guys than the whatever wild card game.
Yeah, I will also be this year. I will be the official co-host for Green Bean's Monday Night Mock, 10 o'clock mock, starting this coming Monday. So you guys get to see a lot of me over the weekend.
Cool.
Alrighty, fun time.
All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you.
Good night.
See you night.
On that note, I am also leaving because I have to be up in 6 hours with the baby. So
all right,
head out.
Thanks
We're
for
gonna
coming
head
on, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks for all you do, brother.
So why don't you take this, Adam? I just got on, so it was mentioned that it's not likely the Jets had found the viable candidates through back channels for. Okay, so let's talk about that. Do you think before they fired him, do you think this was Woody Johnson, pressure coming down from the top saying, okay, we need a new offensive coordinator, and we're just doing it, and we'll figure it out? Or do you think part of this whole process, obviously they have names, but do you think there's something going on in the background where they know they have an in on a couple of people, like where there's not just names, but interests, like a real plan?
Yeah, all we can really do is speculate on what's going on. So it's like what's actually happening versus what we hope is happening. If the Jets fire Michael LaFleur without having a better candidate in mind, then I'm very concerned about the overall direction here, because we have felt over the last year plus that the Jets organization was in synchronicity, that Douglas was making the decisions, was working well with Saleh, they communicate well, and all of this. But if this is a situation where Woody Johnson's angry, and if he's angry, he's very justifiably angry. I got no problem with him being pissed off. But if he is basically saying somebody has to go, if you don't go, he goes, Now, I don't know of any stories that are actually confirmed where Woody Johnson has been an active meddler and it costs a great coach or it costs a great player their job. I am not aware of a single story about that. If there is, let me know, because to me, it seems to be rumor and innuendo. But it's like, who's the great player we lost because of Woody Johnson being a meddler? I'm just not aware of one. So to me, I can't imagine that they would have made this decision together as a unit. Douglas, Solon, if you want to throw him Woody, without feeling, okay, this is who we can go get, and this guy doesn't work out, then this guy might be a better option. So to me, I mean, Joe Douglas knows what he needs to do. He asked for a 6-year contract for a reason. He could see the progress really starting to manifest itself. And he knows where this quarterback is at this point in his career. If they're going to change an offensive coordinator, it has to be as surefire a bet as you can get. This is not a time when you take a chance on an unproven coordinator. He knows he has to hit the home run. That's why I expect a veteran to come in here, not another first-time offensive coordinator. I am sick and tired. I'm going to say one more thing. I am tired, as you yawn, I am tired of every offensive coordinator we have being gone within 2 years. Going back to Brian Schottenheimer, you could go through the list. 7 offensive coordinators, 7, not one has lasted more than 2 years. And you can't tell me that's because all of them sucked. You can't convince me of that. To me, that is organizational issues, turning things over too much. And I don't like, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't like LaFleur going after 2 years. If you have a better option, fine. But who are we bringing in typically? Dow Loggins, Jeremy Bates, Marty Morningwood. These weren't upgrades. So this one, I need a hire that is going to have me excited, thinking that, okay, whoever our quarterback is, this guy will know how to get the best out of that quarterback. They better have had a plan.
Yeah. It is true that it's hard to imagine that we're going to have a lot of success, or we could have until this organization settles down. Like, I think that our suffering, part of the way our suffering will end, if it's ever going to end, is going to be when we finally get to a place where we just know who our coach is and who our staff is, and it's just consistent and it's not being blown up. That's not to, again, criticize. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know that they don't have a plan. I don't know. We don't know. We're just speculating. But whoever they bring in, we need somebody who's going to be in here for a while. They need to get it right. We can't keep doing it, especially if we come in and change this system around. Like, if we come in and it's going to look completely different, it just doesn't work. Like, if you look at the great organizations, it's the same system year after year after year. And this way, as you slowly have players leaving, players come, you always have players who have been there to teach the new guys. And what it leads to is a system that's executed really, really well.
It's sustainable is the way I would phrase it. Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, New England. We all know who these teams are.
Right.
And you know what? That's not just players. That's coaches also. Because you know what? When you have a great team, unless you're Eric Bieniemy, if you're a good coordinator, you're going to get hired away as a head coach, but they'll have somebody who's ready to step into those shoes in most cases. So it's not just about players. That pipeline's about coaches also.
Yeah. So we might regret it. It's true. We might regret that we didn't give him 1 year. It's definitely 1 more year. It's possible because like we had a lot of fans out for blood, screaming, "This is the great thing." But a lot of times you got to look. Sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jet fans, and some who are here. And good.
Uh oh. Did I freeze or did he freeze? Somebody tell me who froze in the chat. Who is the one that froze? Did I freeze or did Y2K freeze? I mean, I'm still seeing chats coming in, so that's a good sign. but somebody froze. He froze. Adam froze. Okay, so I'm the one talking. All right, let's remove him right now temporarily from the screen until he unfreezes. And he, he was so. Somebody's talking about trivia. I'm good. Thanks. Thanks. Good. That's the first time. Yeah, I was not used to in my life. Not many times have people said you're good. Y2K Frozen. Frozen 2K. Frozen. 2K Frozen. Anyway, it's just us now, guys. Back where we started this night hours ago when I jumped on randomly to react to the news. Yeah, look, it's politics. It's politics. You know what I mean? It's politics. He was asked to leave. But that just shows they did it on a very friendly, lots of hugging kind of thing. I'm sure that Robert Saleh is very sad tonight. They're probably, they're probably really down. They're probably really down. So, because they're a family, but they realized they needed to make a change. I don't think it's because of the pressure of the fans. I don't think they make decisions like that because of fan pressure, but I do think there's they looked and they really, really assessed and they really, they said to move forward and to have the success we want to have. I think they just determined this is the best path. We need to find somebody else and try something different. Someone's saying elevate Ron Middleton. I just don't know if he's an offensive coordinator though. He's a tight ends coach. Does he design plays? Can he, could he be a real play caller? I don't know. He's experienced, but not at that. And some people aren't built for that and some people are. So I guess it would just depend. Then I wonder if they also part of their decision was this is the quarterback we're going to go for in their minds. And Mike LaFleur doesn't fit it. And the quarterback doesn't fit the system, or they make to be, who knows? Who knows? But I don't think you're going to see a rookie OC. I mean, that would be shocking if they were going to start over again with a rookie OC. It would be very, very surprising. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I want you to all to go to Wicker Media Sports and subscribe to his channel. Adam doesn't only do great insight on the Jets, he does insight on the New York Mets, the New York Rangers, and the New York Knicks. Anytime there's news, you haven't lived until you see Y2K, until you see the Wicker Man, Wicker Media Sports, until you see him go on a rant and be angry and upset. You have not experienced YouTube the way it needs to be experienced. So go check out his channel. And guys, like I said, I will be back Sunday night. Looking forward to it with Tom C for our first installment. We're going to be talking about a lot of players, a lot of exciting stuff, guys that we could look at and start getting excited about for the draft. But more importantly, I just want to, we're not going to get every guy that we talk about, right? But isn't it fun on draft day when you just know the different players, when you have knowledge of the different players? Before I say goodnight, I'm going to let Adams back, so we'll have him say goodnight too. I told them about your channel, New York Sports Wicker Media, asked them to subscribe before I go.
I appreciate that.
Do you have anything coming that they might want to look for specifically?
Oh my gosh. So I'm starting to do a whole series right now, particularly if there's any baseball fans out there. I'm doing a series that I just started on New York Mets prospects. So I'm doing some profiles on some of the Mets minor leaguers. I did one yesterday on Brett Beatty after Carlos Correa signed with Minnesota. It seemed like a good time to do one on Beatty. I've got 12 or 13 more players I'm going to profile. And also, as the season gets closer, I'm going to scout the other National League rivals in the Mets. Going to do every team in the division and some of the best teams in the NL as well. So there'll be a good amount of focus coming up on baseball. But, of course, anytime there's any Jets news or anything going on that moves me, I will most definitely talk about it. And shoot, even today I had a couple questions that I wanted to ask the Mike LaFleur critics, the people who are celebrating his firing. So I put that video up a little bit earlier today. So go check it out. But hey, we passed the 400 subscriber mark in the first week of January, which I'm really happy about, and want to keep this thing going. And hey, man, I thank you for helping to get the word out about it, because I really do enjoy doing it.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad for you. I'm glad the channel's growing, and deservingly so. It's good stuff. I'm enjoying your videos lately, especially on the Mets. It's been great to watch them. And all right, before I go, I just want to say one thing. I'm typing one thing in the chat. Give me something like that has a high volume of things. Like he has more he has more tricks than a
box of tricks. Than David Copperfield.
Okay. Okay. Watch,
guys, Chad, I got no idea where he's going with this.
Okay, you'll see it come out in the chat. So, because they were complaining that I don't block J. Cole, so I'm saying I block him all the time, but he has more accounts than David Copperfield has tricks.
More accounts.
The guy keeps coming back. He comes back as Fudgy the Whale. He comes back as like different animals. He comes back as different players. I mean, it's like mosquitoes. You never get rid of them. Yeah.
You're messing with J. Cole messes with more accounts than Bernie Madoff.
Exactly. There you go. Can you just leave John Nolte alone? And please, leave him alone. And everybody else, don't blame John Nolte for this. The kid comes in and starts talking about Nolte like right away. It's like an obsession.
I miss the days of chicken cutlets, man.
Yeah. First it was Rusty Spooner, and now it's John Nolte. It's like the kid's got to be fighting with somebody. It's like he's not 19 anymore. He's 20 now. It's a big boy. Okay. I mean, this kid got famous on the internet for taking a video camera and barging in on his brother taking a crap. I'm not exaggerating. This is a true story. He had a viral video going out doing that. And somehow that famous kid who did that to his brother has found his way into our channel and our stream.
Anyway, I just wonder what makes somebody think this would be a good idea. Wow.
All right, everybody. You know the deal. I told you Sunday night. Join us Sunday night. It'll be about 9 p.m. Eastern. Sunday night. We'll be looking at prospects, looking at what's coming, looking ahead in the future, who's going to be there for the Jets, who's going to be available. We're going to have all those answers for you. And for now, I bid you adieu and good night. Thank you, Watsuke99. You're the best co-host ever.
Have a good night, boys.
I would regret it if people look back at the first episode and you weren't on it.
Yeah, well, I like that. It's called forward thinking.
We have one of the worst beats in the world. We do. Our beat is horrible.
Connor could shove that article up his ass.
And then I went to that game, and I was like, this is the greatest team I've ever seen in my life. I'm a Jet fan. This is going to be the greatest run ever. Yeah.
No, because if they take Aquanu, I'm not complaining.
Joe Douglas is the king of keeping shit close to the vest.
A 2, a 4, and a 6 for Darnold?
Did the Jets really ruin Sam Darnold, or did Sam Darnold just suck all along and we were just trying to talk ourselves into it?
And Hamilton is a player who can potentially make a very big impact.
And suddenly here we are today. You can't get rid of him.
Right. It's like a plague.
Joe Douglas was hired because he's not those general managers.
Okay, Luscious.
Somebody is going to fall just like Elijah Moore did, just like Michael Carter did.
You know, if you had one sentence to say to Joe Douglas, what would you say? So you would say, you had me at hello, and then give him a